Good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I am your host, as always, Tony Defio, and I thank you for joining me on this lovely and kind of humid Friday night in Pittsburgh. And hopefully it's nice and pleasant and not as muggy wherever you are in the world. Before I start, I'd just like to remind you, as always, to please like and subscribe to our Behind the Steel Curtain YouTube channel, where we bring you live shows just about every day. I think we do bring you live shows every day. There's obviously this show. There's the preview that comes to you on Thursday nights. There's Know Your Enemy. That's Jeffrey Benedict and Michael Beck on Wednesday nights. There's the Scobro Show with Dave Schofield and his brother Rich on Tuesdays. The Hangover with me, Brian Anthony Davis, Shannon White on Mondays. Touchdown Under with Matty Peverall and Mark Davidson on Saturday nights. We have post-game stuff following each Steeler game now that we're into the season. That's on Sundays or whenever they play their games, the Steelers. So please check that out. Those shows out live every week on YouTube and on Facebook. We're on Facebook right now too. I'm on Facebook Live right now. So if you're watching me on Facebook, hello. You can check us out there, our platform, our podcasting platform, and you can check out all of our live shows after the fact on any audio platform of your choosing. Doesn't really matter which one you use. You know all the places you can find audio podcasts. Well, you can find our live shows on there after the fact. Please download part 1 or part 2. And last Monday on the Hangover, we had 3 parts. So please download every part. You won't be sorry. And of course, we have audio only shows, exclusively audio only, that you can find on any audio platform, including the Live Mic with Michael Beck, the Stat Geek with Dave Schofield, the War Room with Matty Peverall, From the Cutting Room Floor with Jeffrey Benedict, Let's Ride, the Cadillac of our audio podcast with Jeff Hartman, and we have new shows. What Ian's talking about. We have fantasy stuff. We have everything you could possibly want as far as Steelers content in podcasting form, in podcast form. And please check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website where we bring you news, commentary, film breakdown. Anytime there's a breaking story, anytime there's a Steeler game to discuss, anytime there's a trade, a free agent signing, an injury, a Twitter thing, you'll find it on Behind the Steel Curtain. As we like to say, it's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. And welcome to everybody in the live chat. Speaking of Mark Davidson, he says AO, but he wasn't the first one here. The first one here was Cree X. He was here long before I even went live. So welcome, Cree. Jared Devil, McEldew, Stacy Lynn, Ben Harris, Owen David, all the way over from the UK. Mika Everett, Drake Johnson, Kenneth 36 Brown. That's pretty cool. EJ Lewis, Wayne Sushi, Brian Brown, Jeff Vallon. And I think that's everybody so far. I hope to have more in here. And I hope to give you guys a good show. And how about that NFL season, right? The NFL's here. It's officially here. Everybody's played one game. Some have played 2 now. Washington and the Giants played on Thursday. So we're in the throes of the NFL season, the 2021 regular season. And how about those Pittsburgh Steelers in that game from week 1 when they went to Highmark Stadium in Buffalo and pulled the upset? Not a huge upset. Not, miracle on ice or anything, but it sure as heck caught a lot of people by surprise. The Bills were the darlings of a lot of people in the media heading into the regular season, and they were touted as Super Bowl favorites, and they still might be all of those things. But it's not easy being a Super Bowl contender, and it's especially not easy, always easy to get off to a great start. And the Steelers went in there and they absorbed a pretty weak and kind of alarming first half as far as the offense was concerned. They had 55 yards over the first 2 quarters. and it looked like a lot of what we saw last year, the last month or so of the season, and certainly in 2019 when Ben Roethlisberger wasn't even a quarterback when he was out. So the defense did a great job in the first half, but they were still down 10-0. So that was kind of deflating. At least that's how I felt. But I think the turning point in the game was the fact that they came out with the Steelers came out in the second half and drove the ball down the field. They didn't score a touchdown, unfortunately, but they kicked the field goal, and they did the same thing, I think, on their following drive. So they proved in the second half, whatever adjustments they made at halftime, it allowed them to move the ball much better in the second half, and of course the defense effectively shut the Bills down in the second half, and allowed Pittsburgh to eventually take the lead early in the fourth quarter with that pretty dazzling 5-yard touchdown from Ben to Deontay Johnson, where the ball was tipped and he stayed with it, meaning Johnson stayed with it and got his feet in bounds, maintained possession all the way to the ground. Steelers had the lead like a minute or so later. Miles Killebrew blocked the punt. UG3 picked it up and scored another touchdown. And just like that, they were up by 10 points. And that was pretty much the game. The Bills obviously kicked a couple of field goals after that to make it a one touchdown deficit. But the Steelers defense was just too good on that day. And I think the offense did a great job at the end to kind of run some clock. And you have to give it to Chris Boswell. I think it's one thing from last Sunday's game that's not discussed nearly enough, and that's Boswell's 45-yard field goal with 2:47 left after the Bills had drawn to within 7 to make it 20-13. He kicks that field goal and effectively ices the game. And I realize it wasn't a walk-off field goal. The Steelers weren't losing at that point. It wasn't a last-second field goal. But still, I think he had to realize at that point that if he makes this field goal, it effectively ices the game. So there had to be some pressure there for him. And that was his first big kick of the year. And he was straight down the middle. So I think Boswell deserves a lot of credit for that, and so does Presley Harvin, the punter, the rookie punter. I mean, you don't realize what all goes into holding until you have a guy in there that's pretty inexperienced at doing that. And I think Ace Ventura taught us how critical holding can be, laces out. So kudos to Harvin for having a perfect hold on that field goal. So shout out to Boswell, Harvin, the Steelers defense, and even the offense for bouncing back in the second half. I don't think people realize how critical it is that the Steelers. How I guess what am I trying to say? Like how rare it is to have 4 starters in there for your offense in week 1 and have them be major contributors. And that's what you had with Kendrick Green, your 3rd-round pick. He was your starting center. Dan Moore, your 4th-round pick. He was your starting left tackle. And, of course, Najee Harris, running back, and Pat Freiermuth at tight end. And they all contributed one way or another to that win. And, you're going to have growing pains with this offense over the course of the year. It's not going to be – you're not going to be able to snap your fingers and have it be a juggernaut. I mean, you're probably not going to see an offense like you had in 2014, 2015 with Bennett at his best, and of course Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. And it was just a arguably the most dangerous offense in the NFL for a period of time. You're not going to have that this year at any point. You might have glimpses of that. You might have flashes where the offense is really functioning well and putting up points, but week in and week out, it's going to be a struggle. By and large, on average, it's going to be a struggle for this offense this year, and that's why it's so great to have the defense that they have. I mean, this is a top shelf, top flight defense, maybe the best defense in the NFL. There's playmakers at every level. There's playmakers on a defensive line, of course, at linebacker and in the secondary. So I'm not saying the offense is going to go out there and score 16 points a week like it did on Sunday, because that's what they scored, 16 points. 7 points came from the block punt, but I'm saying it's going to be a struggle. But this defense, especially the pass rush, has been the most reliable part of the Steelers organization, the on-field portion anyway, since the second half of 2016. I mean, 50 plus sacks a year since 2017, and it looks like they're heading that way after 1 week. I mean, it's early, but I mean, we know how special TJ Watt is. We know how special Cam Hayward is, and Ingram was a pleasant. I don't want to say pleasant surprise, but it kind of was. I mean, he's had a great career up to this point, but the last couple of years were kind of hurt by he was hurt by injury, but he was hindered by injuries the last couple of years. So for him to put as much pressure on the quarterback as he did on Sunday, eight pressures, and I mean, you saw it if you watched that game. I mean, he was virtually unblockable. It seemed like he was always this close to getting a sack, and had the Bills not held on seemingly every passing play, he might have gotten several sacks, meaning Melvin Ingram. So it was a fantastic defensive effort. Yeah, you have to give it up for rookie Trey. Speaking of rookies, rookie Trey Norwood, the 7th round pick from Oklahoma, who word out of camp and during the preseason was they were really high on him. But you didn't realize how much he was going to contribute right away. And he played 80% of the snaps. So, he opened up as the slot corner. He moved back to free safety periodically, and which allowed Minkah Fitzpatrick, the everything safety, to play all over the place, particularly in dime as a dime backer and in dime and nickel situations. So, I mean, there's something nobody was expecting. As recently as the 4th preseason game, we were wondering who was going to be the slot corner, and it turns out it was it's going to be Trey Norwood as of right now. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure he's gonna take his lumps as a rookie, but if he can come in and be a contributor his rookie year and be so versatile and so flexible and allow them to use Fitzpatrick as the Troy Polamalu like player he clearly is, then it's going to make it's going to make that defense so much better. And of course, you have to give a shout out to Cam Sutton. I mean, he was the starting outside corner opposite Joe Hayden, and he moved inside periodically. But the plays that he made in that game, I mean, 2 or 3 passes defensed, a couple of important tackles behind the line of scrimmage, including that one on 4th and 1, that weird looking play. He stopped him for a 7-yard loss. So it was just a great game by Cam Sutton. And before I continue, I have a super chat that I wanted to get to so it doesn't get lost and I have to go searching for it later. And this is from Connor Eddy. Maybe it's somebody I know. That's my sisters and brothers have that last name, my half sisters. Anyway. And he donates $4.99, and he says, Week 17 last year, Steelers used Dobbs to get the run game going, and it worked. Do you think that's something the Steelers can go to now to get a spark? At this point of the season, no, I don't see that. They used Dobbs because Mason Rudolph started that game. I don't see them using Dobbs at all with Ben Roethlisberger in there. It's just not going to happen. You haven't seen anything like that with Ben as your starting quarterback up to this point. I just don't see like a Taysom Hill kind of a situation where he comes in and is your sort of running quarterback. No, I don't see that. No, I think the only way you're going to get the running game started in becoming a positive part of the offense is to find a way to get the opposing defenses to stop crowding the line of scrimmage We saw that last week with the Bills. They did exactly what so many defenses were doing last year, especially at the end of last year. And that's putting 8-9 men in the box. You can go back and look at a lot of people's film breakdowns of that game, and it showed you the Bills just not respecting the run at all and daring the Steelers to pass, and especially daring them to pass down the field. So until the Steelers start keeping these defenses honest with intermediate to deep passes and doing it successfully, you're not going to be able to run the ball. Hopefully you'll see them be able to open things up this Sunday. Sorry, I forgot to put there, I took it down. All right, yeah. So you're not going to be able. You're hopefully you're going to be able to see that this Sunday when the Raiders come to town, the Las Vegas Raiders. But yeah, these defenses are going to keep doing the same thing until the Steelers make them change up, make them change. Like last year, they finally opened things up against the Colts late in that game. They were down 24-7, and finally the Steelers started hitting some big plays, and that allowed them to come back and win that game. So until the Steelers can start hurting these defenses by hitting big plays and forcing them to respect the deep pass a little bit more, it's gonna be hard to run the ball. It just is. It just is. As of right now, it's gonna be hard to run the ball until they start effectively keeping these defenses honest. So the Steelers are 1-0, and I got to tell you, it was one of the more pleasant surprises as far as the Steelers result in the regular season that I've experienced as a fan in quite a while. I can't remember, Brian and Shannon and I talked about this last Monday on The Hangover. I can't remember the last time I felt this good after after a week 1 victory. And when you're talking just any regular season victory, it's been a while since I was that pleasantly surprised by a result. And it's not that the Steelers or the Bills were that much better than the Steelers, because I think those two teams, and I said this going in, those two teams match up really well with each other. I think, and I thought, and the game went down as I expected it. I thought it would be a close game, a defensive struggle, and I thought the team that made less mistakes would win. If you remember the Steelers' 2 losses to the Bills in the last couple of years, they were kind of like the turning points were turnovers, no pun intended. Whereas on Sunday, the Steelers took care of the ball. Their offense was a C- at best, but they took care of the football, and the game really turned at the end on a special teams play. Like whoever talks about, if the Steelers block a punt in this game, they're going to win. You don't ever mention that kind of thing, but that's what makes sports so great, and that's why sports is the greatest reality TV there is because you can never go into a game thinking, well, they're going to block a punt here and win, or they're going to go for it on 4th and 1 they're going to call a fake punt on 4th and 1, and Rosie Nix is going to come up short, and it's going to help them. It's going to help keep them out of the playoffs. Like, you never go into a game thinking of little things like that. And that's kind of how they won last week with a special teams play that nobody saw coming. So it was a pleasant surprise. And do I think the Steelers have arrived because of this win? No, not at all. I don't think that at all. But I think it kind of validates what I thought all offseason. And that's that this defense is way too good for them to be a 4, 5, 6 win team, which a lot of people, believe it or not, have been saying. I know the over and under for wins is like 8.5, but there are a lot of people out there, including experts, who think that they're gonna win 5, 6 games in 2021. But with a defense that good, it's there's just no way. I can't see them being blown out of many games this year. It might happen once, but even that, like the over and under on that, to me, I would put it at 0.5 or 0.05, whatever. I don't see the Steelers' defense floundering at all this year. or often. It's just too good. So, it kind of validates what I thought. This defense is too good for them to be a horrible team. And I think it's good enough to keep them as a playoff on the level of a playoff contender up until the very end, and maybe even more than that. We'll see. It's going to depend on the offense. Clearly, the offense has some work to do, a lot of work. Like I said earlier, you can't average 16 points a week and win your division or maybe even make the playoffs. But if this offense can improve with each week and find a level that is good enough to beat most teams, then I think they can be around where they were last year, and that's contending for the division title. We'll have to see. And at the 21:03 mark, I think I will take my first break, or my only break. And if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, I'm not going anywhere. Please come right back. If you're listening on an audio platform after the fact, I thank you for listening to part 1. But please download part 2 of this episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. And welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of this episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I'm your host, Tony Defio. I thank you for sticking with me if you're watching live, and I thank you for downloading part 2 if you did that on an audio platform. And I want to welcome some more people to the live chat. Steelers Pittsburgh, Kathy Ford, Tyler Decker, Shane Giggles. That's a pretty funny name. Get what I did there? Devin Logan, Steeler Chick 46, Mark Tobin. And Mark Tobin asked, why is Ebron out? I don't think he's out. I think he practiced. He was at least a limited participant on Friday, but I think he was a full participant. He had a hamstring issue, but I think he's fine. I think he's going to play on Sunday. Yeah, Kriek says, last I saw he was just questionable. I think he'll be okay. So, welcome to everybody, all the new people that joined in. And let's talk about Sunday's game against the Raiders. And this, there's concern, believe it or not, that the 1-0 Steelers are going to overlook the 1-0 Raiders this Sunday at Heinz Field. And my question is, the question is, will they overlook them? And my question is, if they do overlook, even if they don't overlook them, does that necessarily mean they're going to win? And I don't think so. And the reason I don't think it necessarily means that, and the reason why I say that is because I don't think there's a huge difference between the Steelers and the Raiders as far as overall talent. This isn't like the Steelers are this juggernaut and the Raiders are like the Jaguars or the Texans or the Lions or a team like that. I think these teams are closer than people think. And let's be honest, the Raiders have given the Steelers problems over the years. Going back 15 years, we know the problems that the Steelers have had with the Raiders at their place, now Las Vegas, where they've never played, but certainly the last number of games they played at Oakland, they were disasters for Pittsburgh. And even in Heinz Field, the Raiders have had some good fortune and won some games here recently. So, Derek Carr has had some good games against them. So yeah, I wouldn't sleep on the Raiders if I were a overconfident Steeler fan. The Raiders have some issues. They do. I mean, I wrote them all down here. They lost Denzel Good, their guard for the season with a torn ACL. Nkoju, I can never say that guy. Yannick, I can never say his name. But anyway, he's questionable with a hamstring, the defensive lineman. They lost the veteran defensive end, Gerald McCoy, with a torn ACL. I think it was a torn ACL. But anyway, he's out for the year. Josh Jacobs, their back-to-back 1,000-yard running back, he's out with a toe/ankle issue. Njoku, that's his name. Njoku. So yeah, they're hurting, but I mean they still have the tight end Darren Waller, who's had 197 receptions for 2,200 yards the last 2 years. He's a problem. He's somebody that they're going to have to account for. Their receivers aren't that great, but Waller's a problem, and we know that the nightmares that tight ends have given them over the years, and now Waller's one of the best in the business. So it's probably going to be somebody like Minka Fitzpatrick. Terrell Edmonds has had some success guarding or covering tight ends in recent years, so it's not gonna. You're not gonna be able to cover that guy with a linebacker. If you see Devin Bush or Joe Schobert lined up on Waller, it's probably gonna be bad news. So it's probably gonna fall to Minka or Edmonds to cover him on Sunday, and of course I'm confident they can do that, but it's not going to be easy. And even Kenyon Drake, who's a veteran running back, who's going to be taking Jacobs' place, he had 955 yards last year for Arizona, so he's a pretty good running back. So just because they're injured doesn't mean it's going to be a cakewalk for the Steelers on Sunday. The Raiders have a pretty decent front seven. Max Crosby has had 17 sacks the last couple of years. He was pretty unstoppable last week in that Raiders Ravens overtime game going against Al Villanueva. So he's going to be going against Shukes for this week for the most part. So he's going to have his hands full. So Carl Nezup, he's a pretty good defensive lineman. So yeah, their front seven. They only had 21 sacks as a defense last year, but they still have a pretty good player in Crosby, who's and a couple other guys who are going to be a handful for them. So I think the key matchup for the Steelers is obviously T.J. Watt against Alex Leatherwood, their first round pick, the right tackle. That's going to be a baptism by fire for that rookie, and I think T.J. Watt's going to give him all that he can handle. So obviously the key for the Steelers on Sunday, like it is just about every week, is getting after the quarterback, in this case, Derek Carr, and making his life miserable. Of course, they have to shut down the run. They can't just do what they did last week and play nickel and dime the vast majority of the time. They're going to have to keep the Raiders honest and play the run. So if they don't stop the run, it might be a long day. You saw what happened at the end of that Buffalo game when the Bills finally started the run in the fourth quarter. They racked up a good bit of yardage in that one drive. But I think the Steelers are going to be prepared for that this week. I think they know the Raiders they're not just going to sit back and pass every play. They're going to try to establish a run, because again, Kenyon Drake's a pretty good veteran. So I think you have to obviously rush the passer as effectively as you did last week. Maybe not as effectively, but pretty darn close. And you have to stop the run. And I think this game's going to be like a 21-17 kind of score. But I do see the Steelers prevailing, and there's no way they're going to overlook the Raiders. First of all, it's week 2, so none of these guys are worn down yet. Especially the veterans, so they have no reason to overlook them. And it's the home opener, and it's the first time since December of 2019 that they're going to be playing in front of a stadium full of Steeler fans. So I don't see them overlooking the Raiders, and I see them pulling out a close win, and I see Pittsburgh opening up 2-0, and those are my thoughts on Sunday's game. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. Yes, I did. So on that note, I'm going to open things up to some comments and questions in this part of the show. Let's see what you guys have. And Mark Tobin says about the injury report for the Steelers, Bush and Hayden have hamstring issues. I think there's a groin in there too. I think Hayden has a groin problem. But, these are, again, it's it's early season issues, right? I mean, Bush and Hayden didn't exactly play a lot during the preseason, so they just played a full game, both of them. So you're going to have bumps and bruises that you didn't have in the summertime. So it doesn't mean that they're not going to play. It just means that I think the probable designation isn't that out the window now. I think it's you're either questionable or out. I don't even think there's a doubtful anymore. I think that the way these teams handle injuries, I think they have to. If somebody's dealing even with a minor injury, I think they list them as questionable now. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. I think if there was a danger of either one of those guys not playing on Sunday, I think that would have been leaked by now. So I wouldn't worry about Bush or Hayden. I think they'll be okay. All right. What else we have here? And Wayne Suchi says, I think Ben will start connecting with Najee a lot more out of the backfield, and Freiermuth will keep making huge plays. Well, I hope you're right. Because they are rookies, but these are two guys that the offense is going to be counting on a lot this year. It just is what it is. Najee Harris is head and shoulders better than any running back that they have, and he appears to be a 3-down back, and he was the only one who got carries last week. So clearly, they're expecting a lot from him right away, kind of like they did with Le'Veon Bell in his rookie year. And Freiermuth, I mean, Ebron's obviously a weapon, but if you have two guys like that, then it's going to make your offense that much more potent. And of course, you throw in those 3 or 4 receivers that they have, and if they can get that line together, then it can only benefit their offense at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I'm guessing it's going to be a work in progress for a bit longer. And Cree says about the Raiders, they have given the Steelers problems since the 1970s. Yeah, they have. Derek Carr joked the other day about he grew up a Raiders fan. He joked about the Immaculate Reception and said, that ball hit the ground. If you listen to the soundbite, he was clearly half joking. I mean, Derek Carr can't tell. And besides that, Derek Carr was born in the 90s, so it'd be like me commenting on the shot heard around the world. Was it Bobby Thompson of the Giants back in like the 50s? There were people that said that he was stealing signs, or the Giants were stealing signs on that place. So, Derek Carr commenting on the Immaculate Reception, people took offense to that, or I don't know if they were really offended by it, but come on, he's just kidding around. It doesn't really matter what Derek Carr thinks about the Immaculate Reception. It's 50 years ago, so. And Steeler Chick 46 says the Steelers have always struggled against the Raiders, especially on the road. That's true. They certainly have. All right. Mean Joe is here, and he says, I agree. Special teams or Steelers defense will make Carr's life miserable. I think so. I think they're susceptible. And that's because of, they have inexperience on the line with Leatherwood, and they're missing good. So, it could be a good time to catch the Raiders. I think a lot of these matchups, these NFL matchups, it's about when you catch a team as opposed to like who you're playing. It's when you play them. We saw that last year. They played the Bengals in October when they were rolling, and they blew them out by 29 points. And then they played them at the end of the year when they were really, really struggling, and the Bengals controlled the game from beginning to end. It wasn't even really close. So, yeah, it's about when you catch a team often, and I think the Steelers could be catching the Raiders at a good time because they're hurt, because they're on they have one less day rest, and because they have to make that cross country trip and play out of their time zone. It could be a good time to play the Raiders. So I'm confident that they will get off to a 2-0 start. I'm not confident in a blowout. I hope I'm wrong. Believe me, I'll gladly accept being wrong if they win by 4 touchdowns. I'll shave my head. Yeah, right. Like that's anybody's gonna even notice if I do that, right? But I think they're gonna start off 2-0. Ooh, it's a good one from Mark Davidson. And you can tell he's really well schooled in the AFC North rivalries. And he asks, would you rather have the Steelers 2-0 or the Ravens 0-2? Well, Mark, I would rather have the Steelers 2-0. It's like Mike Tomlin says, you can't worry about what's going on in other stadiums. And I think Mark Madden, people give Mark Madden a hard time, and rightfully so, but he made a good point earlier this week. And he said, if the Steelers do make the playoffs, they're going to have to make them. Maybe they might have to make them in September and October, meaning they really should take advantage. They really do have to take advantage of the early part of their schedule, which is far more favorable, at least right now, than their latter portion. So I'd much rather see them go 2-0. Although I do think the Ravens are going to go 0-2. I think the Chiefs are going to kill them. Speaking of catching somebody at the right time, the Ravens have a lot of injury issues, and coming off that emotional loss to the Raiders last week. I think the Chiefs are going to, and the Chiefs have had their number the last couple of years. Of course, they've had a lot of teams' numbers, but I think the Ravens are going to lose that game. But who would have thought that, right? I mean, the Ravens going into Las Vegas to play the Raiders in week 1. And we all know how the Ravens treat the preseason. They treat it practically like the regular season. And that's why they're always so strong early on. And this looked like it'd be a great way for them to get off to a 1-0 start. But instead they suffer a heartbreaking loss. And, their star player, Lamar Jackson, fumbles the game away at the end. So, it's you just never know. Life comes at you fast when you're in the NFL, and you head into the season thinking you're a Super Bowl contender, and next thing you know, you're 0-2, and you're really playing catch up early, and all of a sudden, your backs are against the wall. So, I think the Ravens could be in some trouble early, and I'm actually predicting that the Chiefs are going to kill them on Sunday or whenever they play. Steelers Pittsburgh says of the injuries, bumps and bruises. I wouldn't read too much into those injuries that were talked about earlier. And Michael, let's see if I can get this right. Galtieri Jr. If I butchered that, I am sorry. And he says, I just tuned in. I'm new to the BTSC channel. Well, Michael, we have a whole family of podcasts. I think we have 25 now. We have veterans. We have new people. We have live stuff like this show. We have audio only stuff. You can catch our live stuff on audio only platforms. So please check out all of our podcasts and check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website. We have so much information for you. You won't be sorry. I was looking up some rankings of Steelers sites the other day, and Behind the Steel Curtain came in at number 2 behind the team's actual website, which I think you'll take that every time if you're Behind the Steel Curtain, right? So it's a really good website, and I wouldn't be saying that if it wasn't true. I really believe in Behind the Steel Curtain. So, Michael, welcome to the family, and please keep coming back. Owen David asks, Tony, does Shooks worry you in this game? Crosby a good pass rusher? He sure does worry me. Yeah, he does worry me. I think everybody. I think Max Crosby probably worries a lot of tackles around the NFL. I mean, he's a good young player, and he's going to give Shooks a handful. Or he's going to be a handful for Shooks on Sunday, and the Steelers are probably going to have to use a tight end to help block him. I've heard people mention even Derek Watt lining up sort of the tight end position and helping to block Crosby. So it's not going to be easy for him. But this is what opposing defenses have to go through each and every week with TJ Watt on a much greater level. I think TJ Watt's a much better talent than Max Crosby, but it doesn't really matter because they're not playing against each other. All we know is Max Crosby's pretty darn good, and he's been a pretty consistent pass rusher so far in his career. So, he's going to give Shooks a big he's going to present Shooks with a great challenge on Sunday. So that's going to be one of the keys to the game is Crosby against Shooks or wherever they line up Crosby. So, that'll be something to keep an eye on. So, yeah, that worries me for sure. And Blitzberg says of Derek Carr, he will be having a nightmare with crowd noise, Steelers defense flying around. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they're going to, you talk about a crowd of 65,000, 68,000 Steeler fans that are going to have all this pent up energy from missing an entire season of football last year, being able to attend home games. The way some people were acting last year, it's like their children were taken away from them. That's how crestfallen so many Steeler fans were because they couldn't attend games at Heinz Field. So they're going to be up for it. There's not going to be it's not going to be a passive crowd on Sunday unless the Raiders jump out to a huge lead early, which I don't anticipate. So, yeah, those terrible towels are going to be waving, and that crowd's going to be insane, and it's going to be a great sight to see. All those terrible towels waving in unison. So I can't wait. I really can't wait to watch that game. So, yeah, Derek Carr's going to be using a silent count, I would imagine. Clarence Washington says of Melvin Ingram, I think I missed it, but he says he's going to be giving the Raiders offensive line lots of problems. Yeah, I can't say enough about Melvin Ingram and his debut with the Steelers last week. The guy was just, I can't believe he only had like one quarterback hit. But if you just looked at the stat line, you say, oh, Melvin Ingram, he didn't really do much. But if you watch that game, he was a force. He was up there with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt as far as just being relentless and getting after the quarterback. And speaking of Cam Hayward, I think it's time, and I think I mentioned this on Monday, I think it's time that we elevate this guy to an all-time Steeler. I think he's at that level now. The guy is, put it this way, when he does finally retire, hopefully not anytime soon, but when Cam Hayward does finally retire, that number 97 is not going to be worn by anybody else for quite a while, if ever again. I'm not saying they're going to retire the number officially because they don't really do that unless your name is Mean Joe Green or Ernie Stautner. But I would be shocked if anybody wore number 97 after Cam Hayward left. This guy doesn't get nearly enough credit. I think Steeler fans appreciate him, but I don't think they put him at the same level as far as just excellence with a TJ Watt or Mickey Fitzpatrick, or Troy Polamalu or those guys from the James Harrison. You name any number of recent Steeler great defenders. I don't think people put Cam Hayward in that category, but they should. People always make fun of Booger McFarland, for being the Jason Bateman. Remember Jason Bateman from Dodgeball and all the obvious things he was saying as a color analyst. Yeah, he will not be able to see very well, that guy. But he made a pretty. He's the first one I think I ever heard say this a couple years ago during the Pro Bowl when he was covering the Pro Bowl. He said when Cam was in the Pro Bowl, and he said, "I think he's going to make it to the Hall of Fame." So I don't know if Cam Hayward's ever going to make it to the Hall of Fame, but the fact that somebody said that I think that speaks volumes to the kind of player that Cam Hayward is. And Super Bowls help a lot when it comes to a player's legacy. So maybe if they can go out and win one before he retires, that would really do a lot for his legacy. But even if that doesn't happen, I think Cam Hayward's an all-time Steeler great, and he should be recognized as such. He's in his 11th year now, and he's still playing, at the top of his game. And he said the other day, I think I'm the best defensive lineman in the NFL. A lot of Aaron Donald fans would probably disagree, but he's up there. He's in that discussion. So hooray for Cam Hayward. And he's one heck of a football player. And I'm so fortunate the Steelers have him now that Stephon Tuitt, is out for at least for a couple more weeks. So where would they be without Cam Hayward as a defense? All right. And let's see what else we have here. If I have anything else. Blitzberg, who's been a good contributor tonight. I haven't seen that name yet, but maybe I have. I can't remember. Matt Canada's offense is progressing slowly, but don't be surprised if you see big jumps here and there, starting with the Raiders. I hope you're right. That'd be great. You know, Ben Roethlisberger obviously usually plays really, really well at home. Certainly much better than he does on the road on average. So, yeah, if they can provide him with good protection, maybe get that running game going early, open things up downfield. Maybe they'll put on a show for us on Sunday. I hope you're right. But even if they do that, I don't think it's going to be a consistently good offense this year. It's going to be like the defense was, like 2014, 2015. It's going to have its moments, but it's consistently, it's not going to be that great because it's such a turnaround from where they were 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when they had AB and Bell and arguably the best offensive line in the NFL, and Ben leading the NFL in passing yards, to lose an Antonio Brown, to lose a Le'Veon Bell, to start over with your offensive line. It's not an easy task. And you have a new coordinator. And as I mentioned, you have 4 rookies. So it's not going to be, I'm sure they're going to have their ups and downs too. So it's not going to be a consistently good offense week in and week out. I don't think. I hope it is, but I just don't see it right now. So, all right. And I think, and here's one from Thanks Mean Joe. Tony, will the Steelers defense dominate the Raiders the way they dominated the Bills? Essentially, I screwed the beginning of it up, so I figured I'd ad-lib. I don't know. I hope so. I think they're ripe for the picking as far as they're without their starting guard and they're going to be without their starting running back, so they can, but they have to. Their pass rush has to get home. And I missed a super chat, and I think it's from Thanks Mean Joe, so I have to get to that before I go any further. Now let's see what Thanks Mean Joe has to say, and he donates $5. So thank you for that. And okay, yes, that same question. He says, and I'll read it in its entirety because you were so generous. And he says, or he asks, was the Steelers' defensive play a fluke at Buffalo? The heck with Crosby, Max Crosby, not Sidney Crosby, I would imagine. Explain how Raiders get anything going against NFL's best defense. Well, of course, the defense wasn't a fluke. We've seen how good this defense has been as far as the pass rush for 4.5 years, as far as the total defense, as far as a unit since 2019. This is a great defense with playmakers everywhere. So no, it wasn't a fluke. They had a great game plan. They knew the Bills were gonna be a heavy passing team, and the Bills never really veered from that, and they basically passed the entire game until the very end. So it wasn't a fluke. They had a great game plan, and they executed well, and they got after the passer. Now, how are the Raiders gonna do anything against them this week? Well, I mean, they have a great tight end. And Waller, and tight ends have given them problems in the past. So if they fail to win that matchup, that might cause problems. And if they devote too much to Waller, it might open other things up for them. If they don't stop the run, it might. And again, Derek Carr's a really good quarterback who's played well against them in the past. So, I mean, like I said, you can't go and get too high after one game, because now they're on tape too. So the other teams are going to be able to study what they do as a defense. They're going to be able to study Trey Norwood, and they're going to be able to game plan against him. They're going to see Minka Fitzpatrick lining up as a dime back or whatever, and not as just a free safety, and they're going to be able to game plan against that. So it's the NFL, right? It's the NFL, and as cliche as it is to say, any given Sunday. So I don't anticipate it. I think the Steelers are gonna keep the Raiders in check, but stranger things have happened. All right. Now on that note, I think I'm going to sign off at the 50-minute mark at 9:50 Eastern Standard Time. And I thank you guys for joining me tonight. It was a fun show, and I thank you for all the questions and comments and the 2 super chats, and it's great to have the NFL back. And please keep checking back to Behind the Steel Curtain, our podcasting platform, our website. We're going to have so much coverage for you on Sunday, before and after the Raiders game. You're not going to be sorry. We're going to have it on the editorial side. We're going to have it on in the post-game show. We're going to have all kind of coverage next week with the podcast and the website. So please keep coming back. We're in the fun time of the year now. We endured the off season. We endured those long 7-8 months after that playoff loss to the Browns. And now here we are, and the Steelers are 1-0, and they're going for 2-0. So if I don't talk to you before Monday, have a great weekend. And as always, go Steelers.